Now, moving to the next question. Friendships are important for adolescence. So, during the adolescent stage, parents and family move away from the circle of influence, and it is more about being accepted by the peer and being wanted by the friends. So, that defines their daily living. And at this stage, how do adolescents set boundaries for themselves? Because I've always listened to you, an adolescent mind has a lot of hormonal changes. And at the same time, and when this circle of influence is also changing, and when they don't receive what they need, they go into bad breaks. So how do they understand this?
Jayanti, it's a very simple thing. Developmentally, the adolescent brain is geared towards moving away from family towards the peer group. And when I say developmentally, all of us at different points in development actually very gently transition into the next phase. Of course, the adolescent doesn't go through only hormonal changes, but also very structural changes in the brain. The striatum, as we call it, is very driven towards risk taking. The amygdala, which is the emotional part, finds it difficult to regulate emotion. So for the adolescent, risk equals reward and so on. But without going too much into the technical aspect of it, what I would like us to understand for adolescents, because the identity is also is sort of emerging at this point in time. This is the time where the identity crisis typically emerges. They're going to have a lot of issues, rebellion at home and things like that. As a result, trust friends a lot more and these kind of things. So when you ask me, how do you set boundaries? See, the simplest rule about boundaries is it starts from a feeling of self-worth. I cannot set boundaries if I've not worked on my self-worth. To just consider boundaries as an external thing would be sort of myopic. I need to understand that boundaries can be set only because I am aware of myself. So a setting of boundaries will start with the emerging self. And by this, I mean that when teenagers are making mistakes in their friendships, it would be nice if parents and teachers understand that not everybody has it figured out. Not everybody knows that this person is going to be my best friend. I will have to make a couple of mistakes. I will have to take a couple of calculated risks before I find my clique or my group. That's one. Second is, right from the beginning, if parents have modeled healthy relationships, if teachers have modeled healthy relationships, then it's easier for the child to also, or the child or the adolescent to also understand these relationships are fine. And this is where Asian cultures are slightly tricky because we are very hypocritical with our relationships. You know, what the family endorses, everybody should follow. You can't have dissent within the family and all those things. And that's where I'm also overriding the ability of the child to understand that I can have healthy boundaries. I can say no. You know, so a lot of incest and abuse also happen within Asian cultures because of this lack of boundaries. So what would be a rule of thumb? Number one, when you are getting to know somebody, I normally teach it as 4 circles, and it's in my book as well. So the first thing that I ask people to understand is become aware of their personal space. And the simplest thing is to do draw a circle around themselves and a comfortable distance, and then that space within the circle is what is called the personal space. And the easiest way I would ask you to look at it is when you are in a crowded bus or train and somebody you don't know comes and stands very close to you, you feel very, very threatened or you feel very uncomfortable. That's because it's an intrusion of your personal space. And the body always knows it. The body has its wisdom that we have to acknowledge, because it's giving you this warning saying, see, this is somebody who's a stranger and he or she does not have the right to come into your space. It has this. And the second aspect of this, the circle that you drew is called the touching circle. And why I call it the touching circle is because you will allow people in this circle only if you trust them and you will allow them to touch you. And by touch, I mean both physical and emotional touch. And emotional touch means the power to hurt me. Now, what happens is, if we are not aware of this, we're going to be a little confused. So let me finish the 4 circles and talk about what will happen if you don't respect this. So the second circle that I talk about is the good friend circle. And the good friend circle is a circle where you allow people you trust, but you will not allow touch, both physical touch and emotional touch. And this is where, most friendships come in. The third circle is the okay people. I meet them every day and all that, but there is no trust, no touch. So it could be a classmate I'm meeting or a person I'm traveling with in the bus or somebody I meet, in a tuition center or something like that. There is no interaction except for the fact that, we chatted over a cup of coffee or something like that. The fourth circle is very, very important, which is what I call the stranger circle. And it doesn't mean unknown people. It means people I know very well, but people who are capable of hurting me. Now, all of us know within our own families, people who don't value us, and we don't know where to keep them. We are supposed to love them because there are unwritten rules. But I would always say, that this person is talking behind your back. That this person doesn't have your best intentions. That this person is jealous. Then put them in your stranger circle. Keep them at a distance where they do not have any insight or knowledge of what is happening. Now, what happens to most teenagers, because they are relationship driven and they want to make friends and they want to make a statement, they want to, be popular and things like that. Most of them, someone treats them well, immediately take them, put them in the touching circle. After about 3 weeks or so, the person's true colors are likely to come out. And then they feel heartbroken, saying, if nobody is trustworthy, I'm so upset, and all of these things, because the hormones are running high, the brain is unable to regulate, it has high emotions, it's driven so much by risk taking. So all of these together confuse the adolescent, and they bring people into the touching circle. And this is a pattern that people continue right into adulthood. And if you notice, I've seen adults who also bring in somebody, and then they cheated of money, and then they feel, I shouldn't have trusted them, and so on. So as a rule, what I tell people is, when you meet someone, put them in the stranger circle, interact with them at a distance, see how they are in different situations. How do they treat people who are weaker than them? How do they treat people who are in authority? How do they treat animals? How do they treat? So you will get to see small qualities that can tell you what this person is about. And if you notice, I've always talked about relationships having three phases: the courtship, the conflict, and the companionship. In the friendship cycle also, you have the courtship. So I can always impress you, I can do great things for you, I can buy you gifts, I can do all of this. But I will keep you in the stranger circle to see how you are across situations, how you are with people you don't like. Because these are the ways in which I understand. I'm not going to judge, but I'm going to understand, okay, when this person is wrong, this is the kind of behavior I can expect. This person is very clingy. This person is extremely possessive. And when you start seeing this, you sort of realize, is this what I really want to get into? Okay. And then after you've known somebody for at least 3 months, bring them to the okay people if you feel they need to come in. Otherwise, keep them outside. Another 3 months later, the person can come into a good friend circle if you feel there is a consistency. And these are just imaginary relational circles. It's not like a hard and fast rule, but you will be able to see how this works. Because what happens is, if you bring them close to you, then taking them out is always looked as betrayal, as loss, as grief, as a lot of pain, as a lot of heartbreak. And that is more painful than keeping somebody at a distance, being rational and slowly bringing them closer. And I would suggest that if you have to really put somebody in your touching circle, to be able to share all your secrets, to be able to, really bond with them, you'll need to know them at least for a year. Otherwise, it can be quite risky. And so many of the questions about betrayal, heartbreak, and all have been people they've known for a very short while, and then brought them in and then felt betrayal. So if we use this pattern, though it seems very rational, it's good to live with the heart, but it's always good to take the mind along with you. Because when these two balance, relationships make huge impact. Because if I use only the mind, or if I use only the heart, relationships can be very meaningless. But when I balance the two, they become so enriching as an experience. And I know it was a very long answer, but I'm sure it's
No, that's a
something useful.
lot of insight into how you can have long-term relationship, because this generation is very instant, quick, fast. They love noodles, instant coffee. They are used to ATM, so waiting is not in their uh, um, everyday life. So this gives a lot of insight. I wish students really listen to this again till they internalize, like a teacher, no? They understand what it is, because you've given us very briefly the essence of how you can go on with long-term relationship.